Training camp is here, and football practice may have been temporarily replaced by nasal swabs. Pretty invasive, aggressive nasal swabs at that. But we have less than 6 weeks now until the start of the 2020 NFL season. Gerald McCoy's out here getting confused for Jalen Smith, and Dak Prescott is out here thirst-trapping fools. Thirst-trapping. Some good old-fashioned QB1 right there. So here's the deal. The NFL is going through this rigorous testing process. Then all the players can enter the facility, and then they'll begin basically 3 weeks of a ramp-up before putting on pads for the final 14 practices before the season starts. So everything is going to go very, very quickly. The other thing to know about this revised CBA during this weird, crazy season, the cap will stay at what it is currently for the 2020 season, 198.2, and then will be reduced to 175 for the 2021 season. So the things to watch for in training camp starts right there. The practice squad actually increases from 12 players to 16 players, and normally you aren't eligible for the practice squad if you've reached a certain amount of years in the league. Well, those restrictions are not being held this year. So you can have 16 players in your practice squad, 4 more than before, and you can really have anybody in your practice squad that falls through the cracks. So this leads me to my number one thing to watch for in training camp, and that is, how do general managers manage their rosters? Will teams want to perhaps cut some veteran players because of looming dead money on the salary cap that they might have to encounter in the next couple of years? It's going to be very interesting to see, again, in this very unique situation, how teams are managing all of the different components, where the normal data points they normally have with preseason games, and then what the future of the salary cap looks like. And it seems that even though teams might be more willing to bet on veterans that have played before, that they have film on, you're also talking about very cheap contracts for rookies and undrafted free agents, as opposed to veterans that are going to cost you significantly more money. So those that can balance the salary cap and have a really good understanding of player and personnel and development are the ones that are going to be successful here navigating these very, very treacherous personnel waters over the next couple of seasons, starting right now. Number 2, and this is very important because we love the coverage of training camp. We get a pretty good idea on a play-by-play basis based on Twitter. We get real-time reaction to plays that the media is observing during practice. The fact that it's a very, very stunted off-season training program with training camp and no preseason means it's even more important not to overreact to what we hear in practice day in and day out. I mean, they're not even going to put pads on until mid-August, which will be less than a month before the actual season starts. So training camp, preseason, will actually push into the regular season. That's the truth. So even if you get off to a slow start this season, which the Cowboys very well could because they have a brand new head coach who's only by mid-August going to be actually working with these players in pads, there is going to be a grace period there where this team figures out who it is. But the Cowboys team that starts the season, kicks it off on September 13th, is going to look vastly different by the end of the season. And that's not based on personnel, just based on feel and flow, because they haven't really had much time to establish any of that. And this stuff in football matters a ton. Last thing to watch for as we head into training camp. We spent a lot of time this offseason talking about the secondary. It's been well documented. I'm very concerned and worried about this secondary from a personnel standpoint. But it's very interesting going into the season, right? Because you have an unproven secondary with a lot of guys that are trying to get that vaunted second contract, Cheeto Uzie and Jordan Lewis and Anthony Brown. Plus, you have a complete schematic change defensively with the secondary. This secondary under Monty Kiffin and Rod Marinelli, and maybe less so under Chris Richard, but still very influenced by that Tampa 2, play off, keep everything in front of you, limit the big plays, don't take lots of risks. That's the defense that they played for more than a decade with the Dallas Cowboys. And now they're shifting to more of a press man, be physical, take chances type defense that is probably going to create more turnovers. But it's a complete philosophical difference in terms of what they have been running. And so the hope here, and many people in the comments have suggested this, even though some of these players have underperformed relative to expectations, that a shift in philosophy is just what the doctor ordered. I certainly hope so, because the truth of the matter is, the sky is the limit with this offense. And you don't have to be great on offense and great on defense. That's true. But the difference between winning a Super Bowl and being one and done in the playoffs is going to be that secondary for the Dallas Cowboys this year. Because the offense is going to show up very much like the 2018 Kansas City Chiefs. The problem with the 2018 Kansas City Chiefs is they had a great offense and a defense that hemorrhaged passing yards and hemorrhaged passing attempts and hemorrhaged passing touchdowns. They gave up a ton of yards per play, were dead last in the NFL in passing attempts given up, and 31st of the NFL in 2018 in passing yards given up. After 2018, Kansas City upgraded their secondary. They ended up moving up into the top 15 in yards per play and were 23rd in passing attempts against and 8th in passing yards against. They were saved by a much more competent secondary and passing defense. You better be credible enough to stop teams in the playoffs. Otherwise, you're not going to win multiple playoff games. So the question for the Cowboys in 2020 is, are they more 2018 Kansas City Chiefs or 2019? Only time will tell. Consider hitting like or subscribe to this video because that helps a ton. And shout out to betonline.ag for sponsoring today's video. You know, with sports coming back, Major League Baseball, the NBA, NFL is almost here. You could have futures bets at betonline.ag. There are now no shortage of ways to get in on the action. BetOnline has all the best odds, futures, and props for you to wager on. And you've got to check out Fandemic, which is a look inside the pro sports experience through the lens of 7-time NBA champion Robert Horry, former Heisman Trophy winner Eddie George, and Major League Baseball's Harold Reynolds to get their feelings on what pro sports is going to be like playing without fans and what the entire experience will be like. Visit betonline.ag to check out the latest odds and sports news. And make sure to sign up for an account so you can take advantage of all of the welcome back to sports bonuses. BetOnline, your online wagering experts.